Good morning, everyone. We should start at 11 a.m. Thank you for joining us today. Hello and good morning, everyone. All the teachers and students who are joining us from various schools, all the environmental enthusiasts who are online with us, wish you a very, very good morning. And I am truly excited to welcome you today to our very, very important discussion, or fireside chat as we call it, on climate. So please allow me a minute to introduce who is with us today, which is Professor Viney Aneja, and he has credentials that are so impressive. Kindly permit me to read them, and I'll try to do justice to the various credentials that he has. So please give me a moment to introduce him. Professor Viney Aneja is a globally recognized atmospheric scientist whose work has shaped climate and air quality policy in the United States and internationally. He is a professor in the Department of Marine, Earth, and Atmospheric Sciences at North Carolina State University, where he previously served as co-director of graduate programs. He holds a BTech in chemical engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur, and MS and PhD degrees from North Carolina State University. Before joining North Carolina State's faculty in 1987, he conducted research at General Electric's Corporate Arts Center in New York and the Northrop Services in North Carolina. He also held visiting positions at leading universities, including USO, our very own in India. He a Rosby visiting fellow in Stockholm and Indira Foundation in 2022. He was recognized in Stanford University's list of the worst. Moving on, Professor Aneja on national scientific advisory bodies. He is a long-standing member of the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Board of Scientific Counselors and previously chaired its Air, Climate, and Energy Subcommittee. He also served on the U.S. Agricultural Air Quality Task Force and numerous other EPA Science Advisory Board committees on sustainability, air emissions, drinking water, and hydraulic fracturing. His expertise has supported the U.S. White House Council on Environmental Quality, the Governor of North Carolina, and the U.S. State Department on high-level environmental emissions. He is an ardent researcher and has authored more than 200 scientific papers with more than 130 book chapters and conference papers, has multiple patents, and has authored several books. His work has been cited more than 11,000 times, and he has supervised over 70 graduate researchers and developed one of the United States' leading agricultural air quality and climate research programs. And his contributions have been recognized. Some of those are the Air and Waste Management Association's Frank A. Chambers Award, which is one of its highest scientific honors, isn't it?
It is.
The North Carolina Award in Science, the GE Innovation Award, and IIT Kanpur's Distinguished Alumnus Award. His research has been widely featured in media outlets such as the CNN, NPR, PBS, the New York Times, Fortune, and The Wire. Today, Professor Aneja continues to advance research on emissions, atmospheric chemistry, and climate while teaching in North Carolina State's most popular courses, which is the Introduction to Weather and Climate. Welcome, Professor. We are very, very thrilled to have you this morning.
Thank you very much, Nina. It is a delightful pleasure to be here speaking to you about air quality, air pollution, and climate. But more importantly, I want to thank you for offering me this privilege to speak to the students in India. So it's delightful, and I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you. The privilege is all ours. I'm sure everybody will agree. It's not every day that we cross paths with experts like you. So I'm sure everyone's very, very eager to first initially start off by understanding your journey from India, Sweden, United States. How has this journey been?
This journey has been a very delightful journey, I might say. I did my undergraduate from IIT Kanpur, like you verbalized a little while ago. And then I went to work for a consulting company called Northrop Services Incorporated in the Research Triangle Park, North Carolina. Worked there for about 4 or 5 years, and then went to work for one of the leading R&D centers in the world, the General Electric Corporate R&D. I worked there for about 7, 8 years, and then I wanted to develop my own ideas rather than to develop ideas on behalf of a company. And so I joined academia, which offered me the opportunity to develop my own ideas, principally in the environmental sciences, more specifically in air pollution, air quality, and climate. And for the last almost 40 years, I've been working at North Carolina State University as a faculty member, and it's been a delightful experience. And the reason it has been a delightful experience is that it has offered me the privilege to work with young minds, just the way I'm doing today, speaking to the young minds, in the hope that I can influence some of them about environmental issues. So that has been essentially my journey. Along the way, the profession I'm in, which is atmospheric sciences, it has offered me the opportunity to visit different parts of the world, and that has been very interesting and fascinating.
So how did this interest or what inspired you with atmospheric sciences? It's not a topic, I'm sure a lot of those watching us will agree, it's not a topic that anyone picks up. So how did this come up?
So to people watching today, when I did my undergraduate work, which was a long time ago, from IIT Kanpur, I did not take a single course in atmospheric sciences, as strange as it might sound, because there were no courses offered by IIT Kanpur. And then when I came for my graduate education, again, I did not take a single course in atmospheric sciences. So what you see in front of you is a self-taught individual who has been very influenced by the environmental issues and environmental causes. And to some extent, that's what triggered me to think about atmospheric sciences problems. But I might say a degree in chemical engineering did come in handy because the principles used in chemical engineering were of great value to me in learning about and thinking about environmental and atmospheric. And more recently, as the world has moved, I have started to ponder about climate science and how atmospheric issues impact climate. So in a lot of ways, I'm a self-taught individual when it comes to atmospheric sciences, but I've had a deep-rooted interest in environmental issues.
So I think anybody and everybody who's taking notes, when we have interest in a particular area or field, I think we tend to become experts, because in spite of the fact that you did not take any courses, neither at the undergraduate level or the graduate level in terms of atmospheric sciences, you are one of the world's top 2% scientists. So that's a huge feat.
But having said what you just did, I think I want to emphasize to the younger generation that is listening to me today. If you are interested in something, follow it with a passion.
Indeed.
And don't give up, never give up, and you'll do well.
I hope everybody remembers that, even for later and the others who might watch us. Just going back, Professor Aneja, to something that you mentioned vis-a-vis weather and climate. So in everyday language, we tend to use these two terms interchangeably.
Yes.
But you run one of the have one of the most popular courses, which is Introduction to Weather and Climate. So to explain it to the school students that weather and climate are different, and how are they different? How would we put it?
So, first of all, I want all of us to come to the realization, which I think most of us are already at, that weather influences us every day. So, for example, we are a very cricket-centric country, and weather decides whether a game is held or not. And two, weather also decides how the batsmen and bowlers are going to play. So, having said all that, it is important that we at least ponder about weather-related issues. Another example is, let's say you're getting married in the future, a month from now. You have to think about the weather, whether the wedding would be held indoors or it'll be held outdoors. So, weather is an important part of our well-being, and an important part of our existence, and we need to think about it. But answering your question more specifically, climate is different from weather, but it is related to weather as follows. Climate is a 30-year average of weather. So a 30-year average of temperature, for argument's sake, would be considered climate. So a 30-year average doesn't change that dramatically, but the weather can change dramatically. So climate is a 30-year average, whereas weather is 7 characteristics of the atmosphere. And these 7 characteristics, principally, one, of course, is temperature, what it is at any given time. So the temperature, if it is 30 degrees centigrade right now, and it can drop to 20 degrees centigrade at night, for argument's sake. So there's a dramatic change in temperature. So weather is these 7 parameters, and I've only listed one.
Right.
That it is what is that value at any given time. If this value changes, the weather is changing. So weather is 7 characteristics, of which temperature is the most important. And as the temperature changes, the weather is changing. Whereas climate is 30-year average of these 7 characteristics.
See, that clarifies things a lot of us. So for those, we when we use these both these terms interchangeably, at least now we know the difference.
Yes, there is a huge difference. Okay, and also let me just give you what these seven characteristics are for those of you who are inclined to make a note of it. Temperature by far is the most important. Pressure, the amount of moisture in the atmosphere, which is relative humidity. Wind speed, wind direction, visibility. So when you look at these 7 characteristics, they are collectively constitute the weather. Any change in any one of them, the weather has changed.
Yes. So I think when we talk about seasons and things like this, we need to confer and say it's the weather that is changing from yesterday.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it's
exactly. It's not the so we change it interchangeably. You're absolutely right, but it is the weather that is changing. So, for example, the 4 different seasons of the year: spring, summer, fall, and winter. The weather is entirely different.
That's right.
Okay, but if you look at the climate, that is the 30-year average, it will not be that different.
That clarifies things a lot for us. So with respect to atmospheric chemistry, can you share perhaps a real life example where how an action that I think everyday actions from anybody could affect?
Okay. So in terms of atmospheric chemistry, and for another terminology that is used is transformations of chemical constituents or species in the atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
So an example would be sulfur compound.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so the gas that is emitted in the burning of fossil fuel is sulfur dioxide, SO2. Now, this SO2 is a gaseous entity.
Mm-hmm.
It gets converted in the atmosphere to sulfate particle, which is called particulate matter.
Mm-hmm.
And it is this particulate matter that is of intense interest, and let's say in Delhi, because particulate matter 2.5 or particulate matter 10, and these are two terminologies I'll clarify, is as follows. If you take your human hair, so if you pluck a hair and you snip it, and the cross section of this hair is between 50 and 70 microns.
Mm-hmm.
So you take your human hair and flip it, on average, it will be between 50 and 70 microns. And PM 2.5 means the size of the particle that you have measured in the atmosphere is 2.5 microns. So it's considerably smaller, which you cannot see with a naked eye. You require a microscope to. Or PM10, which is particulate matter of size less than 10 microns. So why do we focus on 2.5 and 10? It's because we can breathe. Our nasal system is designed such that we can breathe 2.5 micron particles all the way down into the lungs. And if they contain toxic substances, then it can be harmful to us. Similarly, PM10, we can breathe, but it will not go all the way down into the lungs, but it will be filtered out by the nasal system. But nevertheless, it has gone into our body. So once it enters our body, we have to be concerned about it. So to give you an example, once again, the conversion of sulfur dioxide, which is emitted by fossil fuel combustion, such as the tailpipe of a car, such as a power plant, they all emit sulfur dioxide. The sulfur dioxide in the atmosphere would be converted through atmospheric chemistry, through chemical reactions, into sulfate PM 2.5, which is very detrimental to human health. So that would be an example.
Now, in terms of farming, I mean, we spoke about fossil fuels
Yes.
and how things are. Moving on to agricultural practices and farming.
Yes.
There's a great deal of pollution that is emitted in terms as far as farming is concerned. So what is one fact that would be so surprising, not just for the students and the teachers who are there, but for all of us to know? What would be that one surprising fact of farming and air pollution?
Now, for the longest time, the agricultural industry had us believe that it was a relatively a green industry. We did not pollute, and we let them alone.
Mm-hmm.
But research in the last 20 to 30 years has begun to show, because of changes in the agricultural industry, and there are dramatic changes that are taking place in the agriculture, that they are a large contributor of a species called reactive nitrogen compounds. These reactive nitrogen compounds have become very important simply because we have attempted to disturb the nitrogen cycle. There is a nitrogen cycle that takes place on planet Earth, and it is composed of 4 different elements. Nitrogen fixation, which is the nitrogen in the atmosphere, and 78% of the atmosphere is composed of nitrogen gas, N2. It gets converted through mineralization, which is the second part of the cycle, into ammonium. Mm-hmm. Now, through the process of nitrification, Ammonium gets converted in the soil or in water into nitrate in the soil and water. These are all ionic species. And then through the process of microbial processes and chemical processes, this nitrate gets converted back into N2, and but some of it is released into the atmosphere. So the cycle goes around and around and around. Okay. That's in general is the nitrogen cycle. But we, the humans, have perturbed this nitrogen cycle in a dramatic way. The way we have perturbed it in a dramatic way is because to have agricultural production, we used one entity, which is the fertilizer. So we use huge amount of fertilizer to grow our crop. And after all, what is fertilizer? Fertilizer is nothing but a form of ammonia, which is a reactive nitrogen species, which means it reacts in the atmosphere. So this process of perturbing the nitrogen cycle in nitrification and denitrification part of the cycle, we have altered the nitrogen cycle, and thereby we have altered the impact it has on planet Earth. And this impact, in my judgment, is quite severe. And so, in so doing, it is important that we should keep in mind that agricultural practices, which are triggered principally by the use of nitrogen fertilizer, and having altered the nitrogen cycle, it is having a detrimental consequence. But let me make sure people listening to me today don't leave away with the thought that, gee, fertilizer is bad. No, fertilizer input up to a point where the plants can take it effectively is good. It's a nutrient. It makes the plant grow. By the way, it was the use of fertilizer that allowed the green revolution in India. And when did the green revolution start? The green revolution started in 1960. That's when India started to use fertilizer in a major way. And since then, our population has increased dramatically. And as the population has increased dramatically, we have continued, we meaning the Indian society has continued to feed this increasing population. And that has all come about because of the Green Revolution. So Green Revolution, which rests principally on the use of reactive nitrogen, but we are using so much of reactive nitrogen that it is having an impact on the nitrogen cycle. Right. There lies the dilemma.
I see. So it's like eating. We need to eat, but not eat too much.
Exactly.
With the fertilizer, I think that's what's happening.
That's exactly right. So to give people listening to me some sense, if the amount of fertilizer that is used in India, only 30% of that fertilizer is used by the plants. The remaining 70% goes into groundwater, or it goes into surface water, or it comes out into the atmosphere. So vast amount of reactive nitrogen as ammonia is never utilized by the plant. So
yes, but ends up causing us the
exactly
not just air but water as well.
So to give you an example for water, ammonia is a reduced nitrogen compound. Through biological processes and chemical processes, it gets converted into nitrate ion. Nitrate ion then goes into the soil and goes into groundwater. More than 10 parts per million, and that's a unit of composition, that more than 10 parts per million of nitrate in groundwater is very detrimental to human health. Okay? And in a lot of aquifers in India, in agricultural regions, the values are larger than 10 parts per million. So we need to be aware of it.
So this would definitely affect the biodiversity
okay.
At some point of time.
For sure.
Transition.
For sure.
into that.
Sure.
But, I don't think I have any of my teachers listening, but if I will definitely make it a point. When you explained the nitrogen cycle, it was clear to me in my head. So I really had a great chemistry teacher. She would be happy if she were listening. But in terms of biodiversity and its effects, everything, of course, on the earth is connected, as do we, although we might be living in various different parts. Yeah. So how would this also have an impact on the biodiversity in India, to say?
So I just explained this nitrogen cycle in a very brief terms, and it takes place on planet Earth. It's taking place all the time, all over planet Earth. Okay. Now, in so doing, this process is called biogeochemical. So the process is biological in nature, chemical in nature, and it's cyclical in nature. Thus the term biogeochemical cycling. So since it's taking place as a biogeochemical cycling process, it impacts all reservoirs or regions of planet Earth. Okay. So one of the regions it impacts for sure is biodiversity in, let's say, forests.
Right.
Okay. So forests in India, okay, 1,000,000 hectares of forest land is impacted dramatically by way of excess nitrogen.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. And so this could also be because a large fraction of this million is cut off because we want to grow more crops to feed more people. So, agriculture, if you look at the total cycle associated with agriculture, why? It is beneficial because it feeds the people, but there are negative consequences on biodiversity, and not only just in agricultural regions, but in forested regions also. And if you look at in terms of economic value, it is close to $1 trillion that is lost every year. So it's a very large, both in terms of size and in terms of dollars value. So we need to be aware of it. Okay. And so just because we are feeding our population effectively, that is good. Okay. And I grant everybody that. But at the same time, we need to be aware that if there are any negative consequences, those too must be addressed, and we need to be cognizant of it. And we as scientists need to make sure that the world recognizes what those negative consequences are.
So one of the main issues, and we are of course in Delhi, so one of the main things that we see in Delhi every winter is the fact that pollution are at such high levels.
Yes.
In fact, so much so that there are various memes to say that Pradushan is a annual holiday period in schools.
Yes.
The schools shut down because of excessive particulate matter in the air. So in terms of India, how and what do you think we can use from global air quality management systems? What are those 1 or 2 or 3 things that perhaps India can do, or lessons that we can apply?
Okay. Our principal pollutant that we are concerned about when it comes to India, especially in its urban environment, is particulate matter.
Yes.
Most specifically PM 2.5, but also PM 10. Yes. We need to be aware of how does PM 2.5 becomes part of the atmosphere. Okay. Now, PM 2.5 is both formed in the atmosphere, like I explained, sulfur dioxide emitted, it gets converted into sulfate aerosol. That's called a secondary pollutant. That's the terminology that is used. PM 2.5 can also be released from fossil fuel combustion. In general, for New Delhi, it's 50-50. 50% through secondary generation of the particle and 50% because of release. Now, what is it that we can do? The first is, and government is doing a good job, which is to keep us informed about particulate matter pollution by way of what is called an air quality index.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that most people have latched on to what is air quality index. They may not necessarily know the science behind it, but they all know that more than 100 is harmful to us if the air quality, and less than 100 is
Still acceptable.
less. Oh, it's good. Oh, we can live with it. It's so 100 is a dimensionless number. It has no units. So this 100 is pegged to what is called the ambient air quality standard. And so particulate matter, the ambient air quality standard, at least in the US, for 24 hours is 25 micrograms per meter cube. And in India, it is 40 micrograms. So we are a little more relaxed in terms of our standard in India than we are in the US. Now, so if particulate matter PM2.5 concentration reaches 40 micrograms per meter cube, we arbitrarily give it a value of 100. Okay, that's the science behind it.
I see.
And this was developed by the science was got written up for India by a wonderful scientist by the name of Dr. Mukesh Sharma, who is at IIT Kanpur. So he wrote that report. And so 40 micrograms per meter cube is given a dimensionless number 100. So people can understand. They don't understand. As a general public, we don't understand, after all, what is 40 micrograms per meter cube. Okay, that's a concentration, but we all understand 100, lesser than 100, we are okay. More than 100, we are not so okay. So PM2.5, which is the principal pollutant, and also PM10, let me not ignore it, are produced both directly from sources such as the automotive exhaust, such as burning of fossil fuel in power plants and the like, and also not to forget all the stubble that we burn in the Indo-Gangetic Plain, that gets as the smoke gets transported to Delhi, when the wind direction is right, it converts it into PM2.5. So, I mean, what is it that we do? The only meaningful thing that we can do is prevent the release of PM2.5 or species that will make 2.5 into the atmosphere. If we can do that, we are home free. Now, the problem is we have rapidly become an industrialized society.
Indeed.
And not only that, we in India are enjoying more luxuries than we enjoyed when I was a little. Okay, I don't mind saying I used to ride my bicycle everywhere that I went. It had its usefulness, but we were not as rich a society at the time as we are today. And all that is putting a lot of pressure. And this pressure is being put on the environment. And to deal with this pressure, we have only one choice. And the only choice we got is to prevent the release, which will make a lot of things more expensive. And we are not, at least at the moment, as I see it, not willing to make things more expensive. So basically, the short answer is PM2.5, which is the major pollutant in urban areas, we can only reduce it. Principally, what are the processes that let it emit into the atmosphere? We have to control it right at the source. So, for example, here's an example. EVs, electric vehicles, or hybrids, which is some version of EVs and gasoline. the reason we want to go in the direction of electric vehicles is because there'll be no emission of these pollutants in urban areas. But we have to be aware that the energy that is used to charge the EVs must also be produced by renewable energy.
I see.
Okay? We cannot generate that energy through fossil fuel combustion and say, hey, we are home free. And because it's being generated 100 miles away or 200 miles away. No, we have to generate that energy also through renewable energy. So we need to reduce the emissions of both the primary PM 2.5 into the atmosphere, and we need to reduce the emissions of those gases that react in the atmosphere to create PM 2.5. That is what has happened effectively in Beijing, China. Okay, Beijing, China at one time was more polluted than New Delhi, India. Far more polluted. How did they go about doing it? They went about doing it. They removed all the thermal power plants which were surrounding Beijing. All of those that remained became gas-fired power plants. Two, in Beijing, China, mass transit became important. In New Delhi, we have mass transit, but it is not effective for 16 or 17 million people that live in New Delhi.
That's absolutely right.
Okay, and so Beijing, China had a wonderful mass transit system. Three, they went from fossil fuel burning vehicles to EVs. So the combination of all that has allowed Beijing, China to become a cleaner city. Their air quality index today never exceeds 80 or 90.
Wow.
So it's below the 100 mark, Whereas we in India, our air quality index can reach 500 or 700 certain days of the year.
Yes.
And so we know what the solutions are. The question is, do we want to spend the extra resources to make the air cleaner than what it is today? It is my judgment, and those listening to me. Clean air is a global commons, which means everybody, every citizen of India should enjoy clean air.
Indeed. Yes.
And it is not only must they enjoy, but that will have a dramatic improvement on their health, and it will have a dramatic improvement on productivity. So we, the citizens of New Delhi, must demand that the global commons indeed is clean and pure.
That's a very interesting perspective, no doubt. Fascinating to hear you explain about the PM, which we say this very often, PM 2.5, without really understanding what it means. Again, it helps clarifies all of those terms that we use on an everyday basis. So now that you spoke about, the EVs and what China did in order to bring pollution down in Beijing, and Shanghai had that same problem, and so did Hong Kong, and I think those cities are far better off now. Can you share one moment from your experience where science directly influenced a policy decision?
Okay. We, the scientists, live to impact policy.
Yes.
Okay. Having said that,
that's not a very easy job.
While we want to influence policy, the policy is announced by the politicians, not by us. Okay. So we are in the background. So nobody blames us. Okay. The blame goes to the politician. Okay. Now, I'm trying to make light of it, but nevertheless, we, the scientists, like to influence policy in one way, in some ways, so that a good policy can be there for the betterment of society.
Yes.
In my case, the one thing that truly impacted my journey and its influence on policy was in the realm of agricultural air quality. And agricultural air quality is like I pointed out at the very outset, it was considered to be a benign green industry. But through the work and the research that I did, for many years, I announced that there is a real environmental and human health issues, and it can impact environment and human health in a negative way. And that triggered a major international workshop in Washington, D.C. in 2006, where the scientists from around the world came to discuss what is it that I was talking about? Not just me, but the other scientists were talking about it. And so, to some extent, if I have had some small influence on policy, it is with the help of my research impacting and getting recognition to what is called agricultural air quality.
Oh, wow. That is magnificent. I think it takes a lot of effort in order to make sure that it reaches the right ears and that you have the right audience who's able to do and effect that change.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And indeed it did. And this workshop was organized by U.S. Department of Agriculture. So it had a direct impact on what I was talking about. But then there were other people and organizations that were engaged in this workshop. But nevertheless, the important thing is getting recognition to pollution associated with agriculture. I've had some influence on that.
That's not some influence. I think it's a great influence. But what are some of these common barriers because of which solutions are hard to be implemented?
The common barriers are really not within the scientific realm. No. In my mind, the barriers are in terms of the political stomach. Do we have it or we don't? And if we do, then we should at least give the scientific process some recognition as it relates to the political and the policies that we make. And the politician. So, for example, just by disbanding U.S. Environmental Protection Agency's Science and Technology Office does not mean that environment has become clean. No. All it means is we no longer know what was in the environment, but there is something in the environment. Okay. So as I used to joke long time ago, ozone, which is a pollutant in the atmosphere, and rather a serious pollutant in urban environments in the atmosphere. One way to pretend that there is no ozone is don't measure it. So if you don't measure it.
What we don't know?
What we don't know?
Yeah.
So I think good scientific policies or good policy should be grounded in good science. And I believe that we, the scientists, have the responsibility to emphasize those good science. So I want to speak to the students who are listening to me today. Don't be shy of expressing your views when it comes to what you have learned. And don't be afraid to express your views. So that's what I will ask the students to be thinking about.
Also, it's okay to ask questions because no question is stupid.
It's a dumb question, it's a stupid question.
They're all great questions, and very likely if anybody, even in the class, for the students who are watching us, has a question, it's very likely that others have the same question but are reluctant to ask. So all questions are great questions. I think that.
Indeed, thank you very much, Nina, for expressing in those words. I appreciate it.
Another term that we hear very often is cloud seeding, which has become very popular, and that had been initiated by efforts at IIT Kanpur. So could you shed some light on what exactly it is and, how does one what is cloud seeding? Is it really something that's important for the environment or changes it in any way?
So I will try to be as simplified as I can. Cloud seeding is a process which triggers formation of clouds. Okay. Without clouds, there will be no rainfall. So one of the ingredients for rainfall is, first and foremost, you must have a cloud. Now, to have a cloud, there are two things that must be present in the atmosphere. First is these tiny particles, which are called cloud condensation nuclei. These tiny particles must be present in the atmosphere on which the moisture can condense. If there are no particles, the moisture will not condense. So you need these tiny particles called cloud condensation nuclei on which the moisture will condense. So you can quickly see you need to have these tiny particles, but you also need moisture. Okay. And if there is no moisture, then cloud condensation nuclei are just hanging in the atmosphere, but no moisture is condensing on it. So cloud condensation nuclei, the moisture condenses, and as the moisture condenses, this cloud condensation nuclei grows, becomes bigger and bigger. As it becomes bigger and bigger, the gravitational force will attract it to the ground. As gravitational force attracts it to the ground, this particle that we have created in the atmosphere, it will impact other particles and it'll go even faster. And as it grows even faster, it eventually becomes a raindrop and falls to the ground. Okay, so that's the science, sort of the science. And this process is called collision coalescence process. That is, a cloud condensation nuclei started on which the moisture condensed. This moisture, once it condensed, continued to grow this cloud condensation nuclei. The particle then began to fall. So it coalesces with other particles as it's falling and becomes a raindrop and it comes to the ground. The reason IIT Kanpur experiment failed in New Delhi for cloud seeding is simply because there was not enough moisture in the atmosphere. You must have at least 50% relative humidity. And I was not involved with that experiment. The maximum humidity they had was about 30%. So it simply did not work. Now, the way this experiment works is that you need to scatter this cloud condensation nuclei in the atmosphere. So that is, and what you scatter is a chemical compound called silver iodide, which is benign, on which the moisture can condense. So they scattered the silver iodide through airplane, dropping the silver iodide. And as the silver iodide dispersed in the atmosphere, there wasn't enough moisture for condensation to take place. And so the whole experiment failed.
Is silver iodide though not harmful for us?
No, it is not. It is, in fact, it is benign to us. Okay. It is the form of silver that it is not harmful to us.
So in terms of climate and pollution, public awareness from our various sessions and also from the awareness programs that we have conducted, we noticed that public awareness has changed drastically over the years. If there was something that the students can do in order to play a part in its change, what role would that be that you feel?
First of all, I happen to think that the Indian student body, especially at the high school or middle school level, is a very bright bunch of people. And when they go into undergraduate studies, they are very bright, very competitive. So I am very proud of our students in it.
Nice to know.
Okay.
Indeed.
Now, having said that, they have a lot more opportunities today than they had when I was in that category. Okay. They have available to them social media. They can communicate with each other. They can look at information instantaneously, which we couldn't. There are a lot of tools available to them to become even brighter. My suggestion to the Indian student is you are a very bright student lot. You need to continue to read a lot.
Yes.
You need to also travel a lot. Now, travel is not the prerogative of rich people. No, you can travel inexpensively. So, see the country, see the world if you can. Travel. And lastly, I will tell the students love a lot, be giving to the society and giving to other people. So, those are the three different components in my message to the student. You are bright, you can engage with students through various different media, and you need to continue the learning process, reading, traveling, and loving a lot.
I think the teachers who are joining us also on the video will be very happy with the message that you just gave vis-a-vis the students. After all, it is a lot of effort that comes in from the teachers and the parents. Parents as well spend a lot of time with the students to have come this far. And with respect to travel, just wanted to add, I think traveling even to a local spot, which is close by the city that you live in, that's travel too.
Yes.
The teachers us a great deal.
Yes. So I don't mind sharing. My son traveled to from the US through Europe, and I just gave him a very tiny amount of money. But most places he lived with really spending no amount of money. He would in Europe he would go to people's verandas and say, "Okay, I have my sleeping bag. I just want to lie on your veranda and spend the night." So there are inexpensive ways to travel, but what you said is correct. It doesn't have to be a global excursion.
Yes.
It can just be within the city, but don't be shy of traveling. Be confident of making things happen for yourself, and be confident in expressing your views as we move on in society.
Indeed. And the other part I wanted to stress on was reading. I think we read very less now because of social media, and I'm sure all the parents will agree as well. Social media, it's very good because it has opened our eyes, made us see worlds that are probably far away. But reading is a very important trait, and I do hope that everybody who's joining us on this call, including myself, we should take this pledge to read a bit more and more current.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, sort of closing in, if there are many students here who might probably go on to pursue, a future in sciences. So, what are the qualities that you say would be for these young students to become scientists? What would be some of those qualities?
Okay.
To create impact, of course. We just don't want to be a scientist, with that, but you also want to create some impact and change.
Growing up, my mother told me that I have a twin brother, so we are twins, and my mother told us I would want my children to be scientists. And my father, who's from a military background, he was an army officer. I wanted to join the military. Okay. But my mother influenced me more than my father. As is usually the case, the mothers are a very important part of a child's growing up. So I became a scientist. The journey of us to engage in scientific endeavors, let me not trivialize it. It's a difficult and a hard journey, but the rewards are immense. And so, if you work hard in the time that it requires to work hard, the rewards for the rest of your life would be great. So my message to the people listening is, don't be afraid of physics, chemistry, math, biology, or whatever these scientific subjects, computer science, or whatever else. Embrace it, and you will work hard at it, and you will do well. It is not an easy journey. I will give you that, but the rewards are wonderful and great. So work hard, study a lot, read a lot, travel, and be loving.
And just closing in, if there was one change that anyone and everybody who's watching us today, there's that one change that each of us can make in order to improve environment or improve the air or in any that type of form, what would that one change be?
Okay. If they say all actions are local in nature, but the impact is global in nature. So, what is it that we can do at a local level? So, for example, let's look at our waste. What is it that we do with our waste? What we do is we litter our streets. We need to make sure that we do not litter our streets. We put them in waste baskets, and then we need to make sure that we don't light fire to it, but we take them to either a landfill or to an incinerator. The short answer is there are many things a student can do. For example, walk to your school. Okay. Then you can say, hey, my school is 5 miles away. All right. I can understand. You cannot walk 5 miles, but walk whatever you can. Make your contribution instead of asking your mother or father to give you a ride simply to get to school. Okay. And so I remember growing up with walking to school or bicycle riding, but in urban environments that may be a little more difficult. So mass transit would be another option that you could undertake. Simple things such as making sure the streets are not littered, or making sure that you, as a community of friends, can clean up the mess that you see around you, or you prevent pollution from entering into the atmosphere. These are simple things that you can do to improve the environment, and that will have a global impact if a number of us did that on an ongoing basis.
Yes. One point which I wish to reiterate is that we are all connected. I think thinking that, oh, this is just a small action at a local level will not make any difference anywhere else, that thinking needs to change. We're all connected. An action that happens with us locally, maybe somewhere else, will be felt by me in Delhi and by you in the US. So we need to be a little bit more careful and aware and conscious of the fact that those small actions can have an impact on long-term and meaningful change if we just make that effort now.
All right. So let me at least leave everybody with a positive thought. We come from a very ancient society.
Indeed.
We in India come from a very ancient society, and we are still governed, or we are still aware of our ancient scriptures.
Yes.
Amongst them is Rig Veda. Rig Veda is a very advanced concept that teaches us a lot of things. Amongst them, it teaches us about the environment. And there is this wonderful thought in the Rig Veda called Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam.
That's right.
And Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam essentially means we, the citizens of the world, are an interconnected family. And whatever place can have ramifications in other places. So if we can clean the environment, let's say in the US, we should be able to clean the environment in India.
Indeed.
So that's my.
Yeah, that's lovely. Any message before we conclude that you want to give to the students?
Yes.
As a parting message.
So first of all, I want to thank my host, or the hostess, for hosting me and allowing me this privilege to speak to all of you. I am available to any of you who would like to connect with me in the future to discuss any and all of these issues. But I want to wish you all the best, and let us hope we collectively clean the environment in New Delhi, India.
Thank you so much, Professor Aneja. That was really insightful and illuminating. I think a lot of these myths about climate and weather and, the PM 2.5 and so on and so forth. I mean, I did not know that my hair. I'm going to do this experiment. I hope everybody else does as well, but I will pluck a strand of my hair and cut it out, and just to get an idea of how much the microns, 50 microns actually is. But even in terms of cloud seeding, which we hear of so often,
yes,
I've read a lot on it, but the way you've explained it sort of simplifies it for anyone and everybody to understand. So that was really, really wonderful. Thank you so much for the time that you have taken to come. Making the time is the most important. I think time is very important these days. It's time that has become a commodity which is more valuable than money. And for you having to make that time for us, and for all the teachers and students who are joining us today to hear from you, I'm truly grateful. Honored that you took this opportunity to come in and speak to everybody. So the reason, as you heard, everybody who's watching us online, the journey that Professor Aneja has shared with you today, I am hoping that will inspire a lot of the students to pursue science as a subject, or to come up with sustainable solutions for us, so that 5, 10, 15 years down the line, maybe there will be a fantastic solution that one of you come up with, which could solve the issue of not just air, but even water and other forms of pollution. So good luck to all the students who are studying and wishing to pursue science as a subject. As Professor Aneja just said, I wish you all well as well. And on behalf of USO, thank you to everyone who's out there, and to my team who's also working tirelessly, behind the scenes. And special thanks to you, Professor Aneja, for making the time. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Jain, for once again, and I'm delighted to be here. And I wish all the students and the teachers and those listening to me all the best.
Thank you so much. And we'll look forward to your continued interest in our activities. And we'll see you next time when we do have a call. Thank you, and enjoy the rest of your Saturday.